Good morning, y'all. Oh, that sounded great. Thank you. Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Hey, y'all. I'm Whit. So I am Kansas City born and raised, and I am a fashion and textile designer. And I couldn't be more excited to speak on the theme of weird. So when preparing for today, I did a simple Google image search, of course, just for the word weird, and these were like the top things that popped up. A lot of the pictures weren't really like weird. They were a lot of silly faces, a lot of Weird Al, of course. The thing that really surprised me though was the lack of diversity in the photos. And when there was diversity in the photos and people of color in the photos, they were extremely stereotypical images, which very much so kind of surprised me, and I thought, well, that's weird. So when I got down to the language of weird, I found out where its origin was from. I'm not gonna try to pronounce this. I tried to Google it and didn't come up. But on the left, it started out as this spelling, the W-Y-R-D. And the key word of that weird, the meaning of weird then was destiny. It then translated into modern day weird with the key word of alienation. I thought that was really, really surprising. I'm like, I wish I would have known what weird meant and how it kind of started as something that was really positive and what it turned into. And basically, so, dictionary time. So adjectives suggesting something supernatural or uncanny. The verb, and what I thought was really interesting is that they made that notation that this is North American specific to induce a sense of disbelief or alienation in someone. And that original meaning of weird, as we saw on the other slide, is Scottish. It's a person's destiny. And I thought about that like, man, so people just didn't realize what they were speaking over my life, my destiny. That was amazing. And just a little bit more about that word. Like I said, it was a concept in Anglo-Saxon culture, roughly corresponding to fate or personal destiny. The word is ancestral to modern English, and it only retains its original meaning in the original dialect. And these next two slides are purely for my parents' entertainment. I could have posted some pictures from now, but you can scroll through my social media for that. I was trying to think of like, oh, what are some weird facts about me? And I couldn't think of anything. And I asked my boyfriend, he couldn't think of anything, which is a good answer because he would have got it. But when I was looking through these pictures, it was like, I just remember literally being comfortable in my own world and loving that space. And just evolving to where I got to the point where I wasn't comfortable in that world, and then getting back to that comfort. And still, I hope to get even more comfortable in it. I still have a bit of work to do. And so, moving into weird, and this might make people feel a little uncomfortable, but it's a part of my identifiers, and it was a part of the reasons why I got called weird in so many situations. But it's me, it's who I am, and I can't deny that, and I love it. I was in a lot of situations where I was one of one. So I was either, a lot of times I was the only kid of color in a situation, or it was only me and maybe 3 others. And we got called weird for that. We can't help who we are. It is what it is. And also growing up, I didn't know of a lot of artists who looked like me or who were prolific in their work, who understood who I was culturally. And that's not, once I get to a certain point where I can research on my own, but that wasn't a part of my arts education. So I thought, how am I gonna be an artist? And when I told people I was gonna be an artist, they kind of looked at me too, like, girl, okay then, all right. So I'm gonna spare you pictures of art like from when I was younger. Just know that I was always been creative, and that is that, okay? So at 13, I decided I'm gonna sew, which was odd because nobody in my family sews. I asked my mama for a sewing machine for my birthday, and I'm pretty sure she thought, well, here goes a couple $100 that's gonna collect dust. I'm glad I surprised them. Thank you for pulling through with all those machines over the years. In high school, we relocated to Phoenix, Arizona. At that point, I was forced into having to talk to people. I was out of my comfort zone. If I didn't want to be alone for the rest of my high school career, I needed to actually talk to people. But I ended up at a high school that was an arts high school. And it was so diverse, and we were a bunch of misfits, and we loved it. It was there that I took fashion classes, and I really got comfortable with fabric, and it was a challenge, and I loved it. I didn't know a whole lot about fashion. I told my mama, hey, this is what I'm doing. She's like, well, research it, go get some books and figure it out. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So that's what I did, and my teacher would let me take the mannequins home over the weekends, and that's what I did all weekend. I would close myself up in my room, turn on Destiny's Child, and get sewing. And I absolutely refused to get a job when I was in high school because I had to fill out an application for CVS, and it was exhausting, just the application. So I figured out a method to sew. I used to sew purses and sell them in high school, and that was my entrepreneurial beginning, and that kept my Taco Bell and Converse habit strong. So that moved me back to my next equation of weird. When I graduated in 2008, forever ago, I decided, all right, I'm coming back home. I'm going to Kansas City Art Institute, and I'm gonna be a fashion designer. I'm gonna be fly, yes, love it. So then my equation kind of changed, because back in 2008, Kansas City, that was kind of when KC was starting to, you know, kind of getting it together or whatever. And so it was like, so you're going back to the Midwest. You want to be a fashion designer, and once again, you're in a program where you're one of one. Okay, yet again, let's figure it out. We're gonna do it. And those are my first clients back there, my barber. In those footy pajamas. That's good looks, all right. So when I get there, of course, KCAI is an amazing fine arts school. When you think of everyday fashion, you don't think of fine art. So on this upper corner, this is what, you know, was kind of the thought of how I was gonna go with fashion. And I wanted stuff I could wear. This bottom corner of images, that was the fashion that I grew up with. That's what I knew to be fashion. I mean, every black girl dreamed of growing up to be Aaliyah. I thought I was the fourth member of TLC. Like, to me it didn't make sense to like have globes on top of my models' heads or like Fruit Loop dresses. And of course that was the time when Lady Gaga was super popping, so everybody had shoulder pads to out here in their work. So that was when I just said, why is my normal weird? And what can I do to make people believe that this is something that I'm capable of? So that's the point where I came up with the idea of get in where you fit in and everywhere in between. And I have to tell myself that consistently to this day. And that's basically just just to me, just means, okay, I'm gonna find my way in to where I wanna be, but at the end of the day, like, it's really up to me of how my work is going to be presented. It's up to me what type of work I'm going to make, and you're just not going to tell me what I can and can't do. So that's about it. So at that point, my summer before senior year, and I was really just trying to figure out what am I doing? And I realized, okay, the three key things of my work is color, pattern, and texture. But how can I combine that into pieces that are wearable, that you can wash at home, you don't have to send to the dry cleaners, that's bold, that's statement making, And when I got to New York, it was like, oh, my people, like, I get it. It's possible. It's possible. Just because it was weird to a certain set of people didn't make it weird to everybody else. And I just needed to, make that my normal. So this was my very first runway show by myself. I came home from New York and I told my teacher, I was like, listen, I'm gonna have a fashion show. It's gonna be 12 looks. I'm gonna make all the fabric myself. I'm gonna dye it, hand paint it, and screen print it, and I need you to be there. And she was like, okay. And this was not my senior thesis show, so I decided to torture myself for fun. But it was amazing. That was such a good feeling. And the work that came out of it was like, okay, I can do this. So from that point on, I really love making patterns and I love mixing patterns. To me, metallics are my neutrals and plaid and leopard print just make sense together. And I just kind of upped my processes in making things and really just honing my aesthetic, because I realized I might not be able to put it in so many words, but I know that I can show people what I'm made of. And also, this is like my favorite because I made that hairpiece. And like I like dreamt it and I was like, I have to do this. But everything, I just knew I needed it to be bold and it needed to make a statement. I couldn't, put shows together that were like really calm and chill. You have to feel my attitude and my spirit coming across in everything that I do. Because you might think it's weird, but by the end of my show or by the end of the time you see my work, it's not so weird anymore. So this was the show that I received the Arts KC Inspiration Grant for. This was 2013, I think. This was Kansas City Fashion Week, my second one. And for me, pattern is my way to tell a narrative, to tell a story. And while, I can put my collection descriptions on my website and on the back of postcards and things, everybody is still gonna come up with their own conclusion of the work, which is totally fine. But this was showmanship at its finest. I mean, the drama, look at all that, it's craziness. And so this was my group of models, and this was backstage. As you can see, I had a very diverse group of girls, and how many of us have heard of issues of diversity in fashion? It's prevalent, it's real. It happens with every major designer and in every major show. New York Fashion Week shows. As Fashion Week starts in September, I'm sure we'll hear even more stories about it. But what was interesting about that night, and I clearly remember this, a lady came up to me at the end of the show, found me and said, why did you pick all the black girls? Why did you pick only black girls for your models? And she said it, when she said that, I felt that sense of alienation. And I felt that sense of negative connotation, and I thought, who else thought that that was weird? And who else sat in that runway show, and that's the only thing that they picked up from the show? So at that point I said, okay, well, I'm just gonna throw it in your face. So at that point, I made it my chance, my opportunity to highlight different girls. And I picked girls based off of, of course they're models, they're gorgeous, and I love all of them. And they're cool people, and they love to create as well. And this was from my most recent show at the Box Gallery. As you can see, it's a lot of patterns popping off. But the narrative behind this show was just to honor the unknown worker. When I was doing research for the collection, I was learning so many things about female architects and how they weren't getting credit for the buildings that they designed way back when. Their male counterpart would get the credit, but they're the one who actually did all the work. And then also the story of a milliner named Mildred Blount. She's an African-American milliner, and she did all of the hats in Gone with the Wind, but she didn't get credit for them, so nobody knew she ever did them. The only reason she didn't get credit was for the color of her skin, and I thought, that's weird. That's very weird, doesn't make sense. But the real joy that I get to experience is sharing my weirdness with kids. Every time I'm able to do workshops or classes, I'm so surprised at how many kids tell me, I never knew there was fashion designers here. I never knew that there was artists here who look like me. And that's kind of disappointing to me because I think we have a job, we have a duty to encourage and support these kids and let them know that it's possible. While many of them probably won't sew again another day in their life, but at least hopefully I got the gears turning and it'll turn into something else that they're passionate about. So some of these photos are from Crossroads Academy, visited my last show, went to Banneker Charter School, and I volunteer with the Halo Foundation. This was my third summer doing so. And it was also really awesome to go back and just visit one of my art teachers who really encouraged me to protect my weird at all times. And I owe her so much for that. So basically, at the end of the day, I encourage everybody to own it. Own your weird. Everybody has a different definition of normal. I have my own definition of normal and it may be weird to everybody else, but that's okay. I'm comfortable with it. And I'm comfortable with you all's definition of normal also. But what I ask you is that you respect everybody's weird. You might not get it, but just respect it and let those people own it. I thank y'all so much for listening to me talk. My next event is September 17th at the drugstore. I'm one of the resident artists there at the studios on Main and Westport. So I hope to see y'all again. Thank you so much.